A teenage traveler in Arlington raised his camera in the hot April sun, smiling like he had just won the lottery. The tomb guard remained still, his navy blue tunic shining and medals reflecting the light. The crowd was quiet, waiting for a picture. But what happened next wasn't a flash. The guard's face was hit by a stream of water. People gasped, phones fell, and the air was full of shock. For the tourist, it was a joke that would make them famous online. But what he didn't know, and what no one in that crowd could have predicted, was that the tomb guard he just insulted had fought in Afghanistan and was about to face the actual penalties. Before we get into this story, where are you watching from? Please tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. If you think that principles like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, please help us preserve their memory alive. The morning sun hung low over Arlington National Cemetery, creating long shadows over rows of white headstones that went on and on into the horizon. There was a light breeze that brought the smell of newly cut grass, yet the air was thick with respect. This was Holy Land, a spot where America paid tribute to its dead warriors. The tomb of the nameless soldier was in the center of it all, and its marble shone in the April light. People quietly gathered to watch the changing of the guard, a rite that stood for precision, dignity, and sacrifice. Alejandro Morales, a 24-year-old from Madrid, Spain, was in the audience. On his YouTube account, he went by Alex. Alex stood out like a neon beacon amid a sea of muted colors. He had slicked back hair, flashy sunglasses, and a t-shirt with a Spanish flag on it. He smiled at his friend Lucia, who was messing with the photo settings on her phone, and adjusted his backpack. "This is it, Lucia," Alex exclaimed, his voice full of excitement. "Today is the day we go viral. 1 million views, no problem. Maybe 2. Lucia, who was 23 and had a quick smile and a way of keeping Alex grounded, raised an eyebrow. "I don't know, Alex. This place feels heavy. Maybe we should just film some normal tourist stuff. You know, respect the vibe." She looked around at the serious expressions of families holding guidebooks and veterans standing a little straighter. Alex waved her away, still smiling. "Come on, Lucia. We didn't fly all the way to America to film boring stuff. These guys in the fancy uniforms are perfect. A little prank, a big reaction, and boom, we're trending. Trust me, I've got it all planned." He patted his backpack, where a high-tech water gun disguised as a professional camera was hidden. It cost him $300 at a prop store in New York, but Alex thought of it as a way to make money in the future. Sergeant Ethan Cole stood at his post 20 yards away. His navy blue uniform was perfectly pressed, his white gloves were spotless, and his keepy cap cast a shadow over his face. Ethan was a veteran soldier at 28, having served 6 years in the army and gone to Afghanistan. He had to go through months of hard training to become a tomb guard, which was the greatest honor of his life. His eyes, which were veiled behind heavy sunglasses, looked over the throng with practiced serenity. He had encountered visitors like Alex before, boisterous, clueless, and looking for a moment of attention. Ethan's role was to honor the unknowns, no matter what else was going on. Alex nudged Lucia and pointed to Ethan. "Look at that guy standing there like a robot. He must be really bored. Lucia, start rolling. Let's get the crowd going." Lucia paused, then groaned and clicked record, her phone capturing Alex as he began his performance. "Hey everybody," Alex said, as people turned to see. "Welcome to Arlington, where we have the most serious statues in the world." He pointed at Ethan and did a stiff salute. A few teens nearby laughed, but an older couple grimaced and stepped back. Alex didn't see it. He walked closer, pretending to be a soldier marching, with his legs kicking high and his arms flying like a cartoon soldier. "Time for an inspection," he yelled, winking at Lucia's camera. "Have to check that Mr. Fancy Pants is following the rules." Mr. Thompson, who is 65 years old and a Vietnam veteran, was toward the edge of the crowd with his wife. He had a weathered face and a Marine Corps pin on his blazer. "This kid doesn't have any respect," he said under his breath. "Just ignore him, Harold," his wife said as she squeezed his arm. But Mr. Thompson's eyes stayed on Alex, and his jaw was clenched. Lucia put her phone down a little bit. "Alex, maybe tone it down a bit. People are watching." Alex laughed and ran a hand through his hair. "That's the point, Lucia. They're eating it up. Watch this." He moved closer to Ethan and leaned in to look at the medals pinned to his chest. "Hey man, these are shiny. Did you polish them yourself, or do they come that way?" A few nervous giggles ran through the room, but the mood was changing. Parents dragged their kids back because they thought there was trouble. Ethan stayed still, breathing steadily and looking straight ahead. He watched Alex's every move through his sunglasses. After 8 years in the service, he knew how to read situations like this, visitors pushing the limits without knowing what they were doing. Ethan's mind briefly went back to his training at Fort Myer, when he had to do endless drills while a drill instructor yelled, "Your duty is to the unknowns, your honor is their honor." He steeled himself and promised to keep that commitment. Alex circled Ethan like a comedian on stage, not caring that he wasn't talking. He stated loudly enough for everyone to hear, "This whole thing is just for show, right? Come on, who signs up to dress up all day? Real soldiers are out there doing real stuff," he said, air quoting real stuff, and smiling at Lucia's camera. Lucia bit her lip, feeling more and more uneasy. "Alex, come on, these guys are real soldiers. I read about it online." Alex rolled his eyes. "Lucia, calm down. They're just tourist spots, like the guys in London with the big hats. No one is getting hurt." He leaned in closer to Ethan again. "Hey buddy, do you ever smile, or is that not allowed? I bet they teach you how to look like you're trying out for a wax museum." Some teens giggled, but the older people didn't show any emotion. Mr. Thompson shook his head and said, "Disgraceful." Park Ranger Sarah, 35, stood nearby and watched with a no-nonsense look on her face. Her radio crackled faintly. She had dealt with rude foreigners before, but Alex's cockiness made her nervous. She stepped forward, her voice steady but strong. "Sir, I need to remind you that this is a place of honor. The tomb guards are active duty soldiers, and we expect all visitors to show respect." Alex smiled charmingly and raised his hands as if to say he was giving up. "Oh yes, ma'am. Just having a little fun. It's April Fool's Day, right? No harm done." Sarah's brows furrowed, but she nodded and stepped back, putting her hand on her radio. Alex whispered to Lucia, "Total buzzkill. Let's keep going," after she was out of earshot. Feeling more confident after talking to an authority figure, Alex raised the stakes. He took out his phone and pretended to be filming a nature show. He said in a phony David Attenborough voice, "And here we have the elusive tomb guard in its natural habitat. Look at the stiff posture and blank stare. This is a perfect example of ceremonial boredom." Some kids laughed, but the adults nearby gave them dirty stares. Lucia's camera went down a little. "Alex, this is getting strange," she said. "Let's just go get some food." "Not yet," Alex said in a low, secretive voice. "We haven't hit the main event yet," he said with a smirk and a touch on his rucksack. "Believe me, this is going to be great." Lucia's stomach wrenched, but she kept filming because she was caught between loyalty and fear. The gathering was getting smaller now, and some tourists were leaving to avoid the show. Mr. Thompson stayed with his arms crossed and watched Alex with a mix of fury and sympathy. A group of students nearby listened as their teacher talked about the tomb's importance. "These soldiers aren't just standing there to look good," she stated in a low voice. "They've fought in wars and earned their place through sacrifice." The kids nodded and looked at Alex with more and more anger. Alex, who didn't notice the change in attitude, became bolder. He got close enough to Ethan that he could touch him and pretended to clean his buttons. "Gotta keep these shiny, right, soldier boy?" he asked, his voice full of sarcasm. "Bet they don't teach you how to deal with tourists in boot camp." Ethan's jaw tightened almost subtly, which was the only hint that he was human under the discipline. His training was still strong, but he was losing his patience. Sarah was talking into her radio and keeping an eye on Alex. She had seen enough. She was ready to step in if he crossed another line. But Alex was too busy with his act to notice. "Okay, everyone," he said in a loud voice like a ringmaster. "Time for the big finish, the April Fool's joke to end all jokes." He opened his rucksack with a flourish and pulled out what looked like a fancy camera. Lucia's eyes got bigger when she realized what it actually was, a water gun that had been carefully hidden. She lowered her phone and muttered, "Alex, what are you doing? That's too far." Alex didn't pay attention to her and went back to being a showman. "Hey everyone," he said, "I'm about to take a picture of a very special moment with America's best, He messed with the phony camera settings to get the crowd's attention. A few tourists raised their phones, anticipating something huge, but Mr. Thompson's voice pierced through. "Stop that nonsense right now," he yelled as he stepped forward. "This is not a game." But Alex was determined. He smiled and raised the water gun for the best April Fool's picture. 3, 2, 1. A strong spray of water burst out with a quick pull of the trigger, hitting Ethan right in the face. The liquid splattered on his sunglasses, dripped down his face, and soiled his clean uniform, collecting at his collar where his medals shone. The world paused for a heartbeat. The crowd gasped, and it seemed like they all took a deep breath at the same time. Lucia stopped moving, and her phone slipped out of her hands. Mr. Thompson's cheeks turned red with anger. Parents turned their backs on their kids to protect them from what was going on. Sarah ran ahead with her radio blazing, but it was too late to stop it. Ethan didn't move, and water ran down his cheeks and soaked his clothing. Droplets stuck to his medals, which he earned in Afghanistan and polished every morning. His training yelled at him to keep still and respect the unknowns above everything else. But there was a change in his eyes, a flash of determination. This wasn't just a joke. Every soldier buried here would have been offended by this. Alex's smile faded as the stillness went on. He thought there would be laughing or maybe a severe look, but not this deathly calm. "It's just water, man," he answered faintly, shaking the false camera in his hands. "April Fools, right? No big deal." His voice broke, showing that he was starting to feel scared. Ethan moved so quickly that everyone was surprised. He stepped forward in one smooth motion and grabbed Alex's wrist with his gloved hand, using just the right amount of force. He took the water gun out of Alex's hand with his other hand and held it up like proof. When he spoke, his voice was low and powerful, and it cut through the silence like a knife. "This isn't a joke. You're insulting the men and women who gave everything for this country." Alex's face lost all color, and his swagger fell apart. He stammered, I didn't mean," and his Spanish accent got stronger as he got more scared. Ethan's grip didn't hurt, but it didn't give in, which was a tacit message that fighting back was useless. The throng stared, phones down, and their interest turned to humiliation. "Alex, what have you done?" Lucia said in a low voice as she stepped back. Sarah got to them with 2 other rangers on either side of her. "Step back, Sergeant," she urged in a voice that was both professional and tense. "We'll handle it from here." Ethan let go of Alex's wrist and stepped back with military precision, but he still hovered over him. Sarah looked at Alex with stern eyes. "You're coming with us. It's a big deal to mess with a tomb guard." Alex's knees shook when he realized what was going on. He yelled, "It was just a prank. I didn't know. I thought he was just a tourist." Sarah didn't move. Ignorance isn't an excuse. "Let's go." She motioned for him to follow, and the other rangers got closer. Mr. Thompson pushed his way through the crowd, his voice cracking with emotion. He glared at Alex and continued, "You thought this was funny. That man is guarding my brothers who never came home. You were rude to all of them." Alex blinked and looked at Ethan's wet outfit, where the medals sparkled in the sun. He finally seemed to understand that they weren't props, but symbols of sacrifice. Ethan spoke again, still standing at attention. Even though water was flowing from his kepi, his voice was steady. "This uniform stands for every soldier who didn't come home. These medals aren't just for show, they're proof of service and lives lost. I served in Afghanistan, and the men who stand here tomorrow have been in combat too. You make fun of that for a video." His comments weren't furious, but they had a weight that made everyone quiet. Alex's shoulders drooped. He had lost his confidence. "I didn't know," he said in a voice that was hard to hear. I thought you were just..." He stopped talking and couldn't finish. Lucia stepped forward, her face pallid. "I'm so sorry," she said to Ethan and then to Sarah. "He didn't get it. We didn't get it." Sarah nodded, but her face didn't change. She looked at Alex and said, "With understanding comes responsibility. You'll have to tell the police about this. Let's go." Alex looked back at Ethan as they took him away, and his voice broke. "I'm sorry, dude. I was dumb. I didn't understand." Ethan gave a small nod to show that he accepted the apologies, then went back to his post. Even though his uniform was soaked, he stood up straight. The throng stayed still for a time before slowly breaking up, their talk quieting down. Mr. Thompson stayed for a while, quietly proud of Ethan. He turned to his wife, his voice heavy. He remarked, "That's what honor looks like." She nodded and held his hand tightly. The teacher of the school group talked to her kids nearby. "Keep this in mind," she said. "Respect isn't just a word. It's how we show that we care about those who gave everything." Lucia followed Sarah and Alex to the security office with her camera off, and her excitement for the trip was gone. Sarah told them what could happen: a fine, a ban from Arlington, and maybe more if charges were brought. Alex sat quietly with his head in his hands, going over what Ethan had said. He finally saw that his joke was not a way to get famous, but a moment of embarrassment. Ethan stood vigil at the tomb again. The sun dried the wetness on his clothing, and the medals on his chest shone. Every one is a story of bravery. He thought about his squad in Afghanistan, the friends he had lost, and the people he didn't know who he now honored. Their remembrance gave him courage, and reminded him why he was standing there, not caring about the disrespect. The audience got back into its flow as the day went on. But things had changed. There were fewer tourists who posed for goofy pictures. More people stood back and watched Ethan with new admiration. Parents told their kids what the tomb symbolized, and why the guard never moved. Mr. Thompson and his wife lingered until the next guard change. They saluted as Ethan marched off, his duties still going strong. Alex's apology hung in the air, a small step toward getting it. He came to Arlington looking for glory, but he departed with a lesson that he would never forget. Some individuals and locations need more than just a laugh. They want respect that comes from making sacrifices and is passed on by those who stand guard. And in Arlington, where the price of freedom is set in stone, that respect is not up for debate. If you liked the tale, you might want to send a super chat to help get more stories like this. Now click on the video on the screen to hear another story that is just as compelling and interesting. It has bravery, sacrifice, and a choice that will make you question all you thought you knew about duty and justice. Click on the video.